boy, it's been a while. Forgot what I do. First things first, I'm counting 2 Americans killed since last we chatted. I don't know whether... Thank you. All right, folks. There was an explosion in, let's see, Afghanistan. And actually the Trump administration is suggesting that the reason why those Americans were killed was because Pakistanis were encouraging it primarily because he cut funding to the Pakistanis. Go figure.
I'm not hearing anything at the telephone.
All right, folks, let me just tell you, it has become more than apparent to me that everybody else is to blame except for the person who's in charge. The buck never stops there for whatever reason. All right, and then, of course, there's the hidden history of the African-American warrior. You know, I heard something about these guys when I was there in Dakar, Senegal, recently. It was quite telling. You know, the famed Tuskegee Airmen's first deployment was actually to Northern Africa. Didn't realize that as I thought back at the movie Red Tails. It dawned on me that that's exactly where they were. And they were complaining about the fact that they were not in the European theater. But really they were, because they were attacking ships out in the Mediterranean. Nevertheless, the 99th was finally considered ready for combat. April 1943, it was shipped. They were shipped to Northern Africa. Now, I don't know whether it was Morocco or Libya, because obviously the Germans were in and around that area. However, their first attack by the Tuskegee Airmen during the World War II was June 2nd. They flew a combat mission to clear the lanes there in the Mediterranean. They attacked a little island by the name of Pantelleria. I think I got that right. Pantelleria. There you go, Pantelleria. All right, I tried it, murdered it just off the coast of Sicily there. And they were very, very successful, by the way. Some 11,121 Italians and 78 Germans surrendered due to that attack. You realize this was during the days of El Duce, and the Italians at that time, fascist, had joined with the Germans, and it didn't bode very well for them, especially when they faced the Tuskegee Airmen. All right, folks, let's get to this. You know, and you got to pardon me, I'm a little bit jet-lagged. And needless to say, my folks haven't seen me sitting in this seat for quite some time, so technically we're a little bit out of sync. Had all night to work on it, but even with that said, things can be a little challenging. So I'm going to share with you all that you ever wanted to know about Mother Africa, the continent, but was afraid to ask. I'm not going to set myself out as some expert, but I did something that not a whole lot of people did, and that is I started on the west coast of Africa and made my way to the east coast. I'm talking about from Senegal and Ivory Coast to Kenya, Nairobi, Tanzania, Arusha. Arusha is a very beautiful place. I had no idea Arusha even existed. And from there to Zambia and Botswana, Zimbabwe, stayed there, incredible preserve, and made my way then south to South Africa. And ultimately to Robben Island. And let me just tell you, everything that I always thought about Africa was wrong. Everything that you've been hearing about Africa is probably wrong. Everything you see about Africa is wrong. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's mainstream media or whether it is somehow or another some concept that we've got to maintain in uncivilized Africa. But I've never seen a country, a continent, and countries within that continent more civilized. Just basic. And industrious. Let me give you an example of being industrious. When I landed in Dakar and got with my guide and headed that long trek into Dakar, into the city, I saw firsthand just how industrious people can be on that Monday morning. I saw women carrying almost twice their weight on their heads while balancing a baby on their back and carrying a 5-gallon bucket of water. Now, on the surface, I thought to myself, that's a great opportunity to take a picture. And I must tell you, I did. And I saw more and more of something similar. Everyone had something. Everyone was going somewhere. There was this, and everyone was walking. And I thought, oh yes, I'm in Africa, and look at that, and look at those, and there's a guy who's barefoot, and it dawned on me very early on in that trip that I was taking pictures of them, and they weren't taking pictures of me. In other words, I'm the odd one there. Why wasn't the desire was to look at the odd one who's in the bunch? And it dawned on me that I was taking pictures of them because of my concept of what was presented to me as to how the Africans are. Now, don't get me wrong, folks. You just don't see a woman carrying almost twice her weight on her head every day in America. You don't. But on the other hand, is it something that odd, strange, unusual, and queer for a culture that has done this for centuries? I was always given that kind of look, like, crazy American? You're not from here. Or a kind of look of, so why are you taking a picture of me? So you probably won't see many of those from me. Primarily because I didn't want to miss anything by having my cell phone in my face. And there was a lot to miss. Just the whole idea of the struggle, the people eking out a life quite well. Quite well. Don't get the impression that somehow or another I'm having some kind of pity. Because I can tell you one thing, the average person I saw and talked to, you can't offer no pity. You can offer them a job, or they'll make one. But it was quite revealing. The one struggle for the average Senegalese, for instance, and I learned this throughout every country I went to, was this. Here it is. You ready for this? First and foremost, family. Second, land. Third, family. Second, fourth, land. Everything evolved around that. Everything evolved around the whole concept of family and getting land. And I think that's where we're missing our mark. I'll talk more about that later. But I was just awestruck by it. Particularly as I landed in Senegal and saw all the many buildings going up. And I'm telling you, you've got 3 million people there in Dakar alone, not the entire Senegal, including the Gambia. And it's incomprehensible to see the number of folks building houses. And it takes sometimes 10 years to build houses. The government has the land, you go in, you get the land from the government, and then they give you however long you need to build your house. My guide had worked on his house for 10 years. 10 long years. But when he went into that house, it was paid for. Mortgages are something almost non-existent. Which led me to realize that's exactly how my father built his house in Hansborough. Well, what then was Hansborough. It wasn't annexed into Gulfport at that time. Same way. Built a house, poured a slab, put up the walls. Then a few of his friends got together, put a roof on it. Finished it off, walked into it, paid for. Well, that's exactly what happened there. But there's something else, too, that's very striking. the Wolof tribe is still alive and well. Also the Maasai, the Chaga, the Hottentots. In other words, as the Europeans divided Africa into their own borders and countries, the tribes did not disband. Now, why is that important? I'll tell you why. Because you have several groups. In other words, they're all a Senegali. They all in Senegal, for instance, they speak French. In Zimbabwe, they're speaking English. So also in Zambia and other places. But when all else fails, you can go to your tribe. And the tribe has no, it doesn't matter about borders. The Wolof, and most people speak Wolof, and Swahili, and French if you're in Senegal. Bonjour. And speak it very, very well. Plus 2 or 3 other dialects. That's not to show you how industrious these folks are. And English, by the way, is required. But long story short, you'll find there's still a sense of tribalism, which is not a bad thing. It's a very good thing, because if in fact your government, the Senegali government, doesn't provide, then you go to your tribes, your tribe leaders. Chiefs, if I may be so bold, but they don't refer to themselves as that. They're elders now. And they still maintain customs. And I mean, I saw it firsthand. I asked Muhammad, whose last name is Khan, whose ancestor, by the way, I mean, going back 500, 600, 700 years here, folks, was before you had Goree Island, where the door of no return was. His ancestor was one of those that, shall I say, liberated and fought against. First the Portuguese there, and then, of course, the French. So it's a lot of history. So look, folks, it's going to be an interesting day. I've got a lot to cover, short period of time. I know I won't cover it all. Any questions you have regarding that incredible continent called Africa, or the places I've gone, I'd be willing to share it with you. As things come to me, I'm going to share it with you. I had 4 reasons for going to Africa. 4 things that I had to do on my bucket list, should I say. Number 1, I had to go to the door of no return.
Check.
This is the door on Goree Island that many of you have heard about historically, where millions would pass through this door in Dakar, boarding ships, and then heading to the West Indies, or in some cases to Europe. And before you even had an America, you do realize the African slave trade was alive and well. It all started actually after the Gama and went to the Cape of Good Hope. Realized that, okay, you can in fact sail south and go east and get the spices. You know the story. After Marco Polo. Well, that's when Goree Island came into existence. Actually, there's a house there that was built in 1492, the same time that Columbus decided to cross the Atlantic and thought that he had discovered India.
Still there.
Still there, along with 1,000 other residents who are there. But here's my purpose, my reason for wanting to see the door of no return. It's going to sound a little strange, but I wanted to go to the door of no return, go through it, and then return. I didn't know whether I could do that. I wasn't supposed to do that, but I did that.
Check.
It is like, and once you see it, you'll see the pictures of it. The door of no return is in the center of a French-Portuguese influenced building that's made out of stucco. And you've got these wrapping stairs that go up to the 2nd floor. The 2nd floor is where the, should I say, company bosses, enslavers, lived and entertained themselves. Below that were some of the cells of those Africans who were ultimately heading through the door of no return. To the left of that building was a very horrid room that was designed for infants and children. No windows. all, and you'll see pictures of this, all very, very cold. Next to that room was a room for the virgins. It was the only room that had a, should I say, a bathroom / hole where those women could relieve themselves. Because the owners upstairs, the enslavers upstairs, felt that they needed to maintain an area for the virgins for themselves. Then you crossed the hall. Across the door of no return was, and by the way, when I say cells, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking approximately 12 by maybe 20 feet long. And the average, be it infants or virgins or whatever, average people in those cells was somewhere around 30 to 50 people. They were even larger on the other side of that building. So you had the matrons, and of course you had the men. They were all separated by gender. And when the ships pulled up to a wharf that the door of no return was connected to, you literally the ships can come up and anchor, and you literally had a walkway whereby those enslaved can walk along a narrow wharf to never return again. So as I saw the door of no return and I made it through those cold walls, I decided to go through it. And there was a ledge. On the other side of that door is, in fact, the Atlantic Ocean. But it seems as though maybe there was something else there, maybe a platform or something, because there was an open space. I jumped out of the door onto the ledge and inched my way to the side of it to another little platform. And you're going to see a picture of the door of no return from the other side. I thought to myself, no doubt the person that passed through those doors back in the early centuries, that would have been the last thing he saw, would have been that door. The last thing he saw of his continent, his country. And I wanted to take that picture. There's a lot of pictures of the door of no return from entering the door, but from the backside you will see it. And it was quite moving for me, quite telling as well. But I found myself, some would feel a certain sense of pity, and obviously nothing is more horrid than being in a building that housed enslaved babies and small children who were ravaged. But there was a certain triumph that you experience as well, and that is I'm still here. I'm the descendants of those folks who passed through those doors. And I walked back in there. What perseverance, what triumph, what victory. The people of my race took everything every other race could throw at them. I'm here to prove that. I'm very proud of that, too. I don't feel nearly as sorrowful as I do proud. Because I could tell you firsthand that enduring what anyone would call an environment not fit for an animal, a dog, a warthog, enduring that and persevering and having children and surviving speaks volumes. So I did that. That was my reason. So I went out, and you're going to see pictures of this if you would go to the Facebook page, and I also have a video too that's going to be uploaded from a mother who lives there. So I wanted to go through the door of no return and then come back and return through that door. I did that. I wanted to see Kilimanjaro, the tallest peak in Africa. Not the tallest mountain in the world. I wasn't nearly as enthusiastic, and I'm still not enthusiastic to see Mount Everest as I am to see Kilimanjaro. And it was driven actually by my fifth grade history teacher, Mr. Sutton. It's when I first learned about Kilimanjaro. Then, of course, I heard Earth, Wind, and Fire singing about it in Africano, and found myself compelled because it was a symbol of strength there in Tanzania. The Chaga tribe is still there. The Chaga and the Maasai used to war with each other, and the Chaga would hide their entire herds underground in caves, because the Maasai were pretty good, fierce warriors, and the Chaga were smarter, though, however.
Underground?
Underground, in caves, in and around Kilimanjaro.
Wow.
Yeah. It was their way of protecting them. But, you know, no, I had no intentions of scaling Kilimanjaro. It takes 7 days to do that, 4 days up, 3 days down. But I did have an opportunity to climb part of it. I climbed a waterfall called the, Kilimanjaro waterfall. It stands about 30, 40 feet up. Felt the cool waters of Kilimanjaro run through my fingers and my feet. Took some pictures of it. And thought to myself, what an incredible mountain. What a good symbol of strength. And what an incredible bedrock to build an entire society. And that's what happened with the Maasai and the Chaga. By the way, the Maasai still maintains their dress. They are used for security, too, by the way, and still are quite apt. They are known as fierce warriors to this day. Incredible herdsmen. By the way, it's probably one of the only tribes that don't even have to show their passports.
You know when you see them.
That's right. Maasai just show up.
That's right.
You know, regardless of borders, they're kind of nomadic, still tribes, but and don't get me wrong, not all of them are doing it now. I mean, you've got some who are teaching in universities, and very, very intelligent people. They have a brew that is made of 3-day-old milk and cow blood. Didn't have a chance to taste that.
No.
But I hear it's very good, and it helps the stamina roll.
Oh.
Sound like buttermilk and cranberry juice. How about that? But I heard that it was quite fascinating. But I wanted to see Kilimanjaro. I wanted to see all of Kilimanjaro. I wanted to see the summit of Kilimanjaro, and I did.
Okay.
From the plane. Let me just tell you, global warming, climate change is having its fair share of problems there, folks. Let me just tell you, they don't have catalytic converters, and it is sometimes hard to breathe because of the fact that the cars, I had no idea the exhaust. I remember when it used to be that way, but I had no idea. It was an unpleasant reminder. I mean, it is thick.
Smog's an issue.
Oh, it's thick. And so they go days on end without seeing Kilimanjaro. Of course, it expands the above the clouds, low cumulus cloud. I thought I was going to miss it. I didn't see it while I was there in Arusha at the base of Kilimanjaro, but I knew I'd see it, and I wanted to see the entire thing, and I did. As I flew out of Nairobi, there it was over to my left. Incredible. Standing above the clouds. Like a knight. And so, with that, I thought, okay, I want to see Victoria Falls.
Oh, yeah.
Incredible wonder of the world there. One of the largest, or maybe the largest, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, compared to Niagara, you've seen both.
Yeah. Niagara pushes out more water, but it's some 2 miles of waterfall on the Zambezi. By the way, Zambezi has a whole lot of hippos and a whole lot of crocodiles. But I wanted to see Victoria Falls, and I wanted to feel the waters of Victoria Falls, which is the Zambezi. See the sunset on the Zambezi. And hear the stories of it. Actually, it goes back to one explorer by the name of Livingston. he so-called discovered Victoria Falls. It was not called Victoria Falls then. It was called Mosa. I wrote it down here, and I can't remember. Mosa something. It was the water that thunders is the name of it. That's what the locals called it there in Victoria Falls.
Mosi o Atunya.
Atunya, thank you very much. And the pictures that you're going to see won't do it justice. And the people who are around it, you know, are not running around in loincloths. Actually, I saw no one in loincloths except those people who were performing for little trinkets for a nickel or a dime, who wanted to confirm for their audience that, oh yeah, we're the real Africans because we've got loincloths. There were some individuals, however, who did in fact have the native wear. The Maasai always did. Rarely carried a spear. It's more ceremonial. These days they'll carry a carbine or AR-15 or AK. But Victoria Falls, I had a guide was named Arabino, who also was part of a tribe here. Is the Meru, I think. And you'll find when you ask them, so what tribe are you? They'll be very willing to tell you about it. Colonialism exists and the borders exist, but the tribes still exist. And that is that's their game, to put it in our dialogue. So I saw Victoria Falls, contemplated swimming in it, did not. Yeah, crocodiles in it. There were some folks who swam in it. They weren't from here, I can tell you that. And then the fourth thing, that was the third thing. The fourth thing I wanted to do was go to Robben Island, the island that housed one Nelson Mandela. 18 years he spent there. Spent 27 years in total imprisoned. Mandela did not arrive at the island the way I arrived, by way of ferry or by way of boat. He was flown in, he and 4 others, because they were considered very high velocity prisoners. I saw the cell that he was in. I'll share that a bit with you. And I actually had the opportunity of having one of the people who was imprisoned there when Obama was there. His name, a man by the name of Fox. You'll hear from him as well. He still walks like he wears chains. Very hefty fellow. Very humble. Very humble. But very serious. You can see in his eyes he's the kind of guy that you don't toy with. You know, he's been to hell and back. He's not angry. But he described the environment that he was in, and I saw firsthand the environment. And again, an environment not fit for an animal, to say the least. Mandela used to joke about the fact that he could hit the top of his head and his toes would hit both sides of the walls, and he was right. Severe beatings, if in fact you didn't fold your blanket a certain way, your bath pan was only emptied once a day. You only got one visitor a year, one letter a year. Depending on what the letter said, it could actually be censored, so you'd only have just the name and the salutations. The rest of it could be blacked out. And then, of course, you had the killer dogs that was always ever present. So, very cold, very dank environment there, the prison. And then the prison was built by the prisoners. You know, interestingly enough, ladies and gentlemen, on all of these places that I went to, there was always an overlap of history. Before there was apartheid in 1948, you had World War II. And there on Goree Island was significant arms by the Afrikaans. In other words, you still have cannon there. The Guns of Navarone is there on Goree Island there in Senegal. The Chaka tribe fought with the British, fought on the side of the British against the Germans that had occupied Tanzania and were successful. So there was always this overlap of historical significance to these islands. But I wanted to go to Robben Island. I wanted to grab the jail cell. I actually wanted to go into the jail cell. Didn't allow me. No, they didn't allow me to do that. Didn't allow me to do that. Obama was allowed to do that.
Yeah.
But just being in the hallways of the jail cell, was enough, really.
Yeah. Did you feel anything there? The actor who portrayed Mandela most recently, Idris Elba, indicated when he went to the jail, he could feel supernatural power there.
I felt that all over the continent. You see, for me, as I explained to many of my guides, I'm not a tourist. This is a reunion for me. It is like finding some long-lost kin. On both sides, by the way. Nelson Mandela was a Corsi, as his tribe. And his fair complexion, some would argue, was due to mixed breeding. Some would say that was not mixed breeding, it was the Hottentots and the Corsi, who, by the way, were very fair complexion Africans. Hang on, folks. Quick break. We shall return. A lot to cover. Short period of time. You're going to hear from Jay-Z and, of course, the president and Dave Chappelle. Not LaPelle. We'll be back.
It's about that time to get away. Make your reservation.